Touchdown Tampa Bay, you're listening to the Pewtercast.
Welcome to the Pewtercast. I am Brent Allen, your host, joined as always by my...
I cannot believe what Mark Cook just told us.
Oh my gosh, Rendaxed, spoiling everything.
Believe
it's something. It is as a Bucs fan, I'm going to call this an almost bombshell.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
This is one of the questions that everyone has been wondering, asking,
yes,
when speculating about what we're going to do with the defensive line.
Yeah.
Who are we going to sign?
Yeah.
Who takes priority?
Yeah.
He told us from the mouth of the man.
Yes. Don't give it away.
Hey, not my first rodeo.
You got
But it's going to make Buck fans happy.
Yeah.
It's like, it's something where, like, I've tweeted about it. Well, you know, he might do this because of this, and that would really help us out.
And I always say no.
He said it
Yeah.
to Mark Cook.
Yeah.
And then Mark told us.
Yeah. So if that's not enough of a teaser to get you guys excited, I don't know what is, because today's guest, as Ren has just said, I'm sure you saw it in the headline, the title of the podcast, Mark Cook from Pewter Report is back. Always a good time talking to Mark. He really is. But Ren, man, fantastic interview. Not interview, that's not really a conversation with Mark Cook there of Pewter Report. Man, listen, Bucs win 2 in a row. We get the news.
Screw it.
I know.
Just cut it. Start the conversation.
Mark Cook suspended from his own podcast. We couldn't go a week without hearing his voice, so we brought him in here to the Pewtercast. Mark Cook, welcome to the show, buddy.
What's up, guys? How are y'all doing tonight? I guess it's tonight, isn't it? I don't know when you're going to put this out. We're going to pretend it's tonight, because it is in my world.
Listen, people could listen to it whenever, daytime, night, whatever. But for us, it's definitely night. I got to tell you, Bucs win 2 in a row. I don't think I realized that they've won 3 of the last 4 until a couple of different people said it. Like, that didn't click in my brain.
Right.
So, it's not bad being a Bucs fan. That one loss, though, man, that was a doozy for me especially, but
well, yeah. I mean, look, people are like, they could be the Saints. Let's not forget who the Saints are, right? They're the best team in the NFC behind San Francisco, probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those two teams are probably going to face each other, certainly in the playoffs, if not in the NFC Championship game. So, I said it in our podcast immediately after the game, where it tends to be over-emotional, even for us guys at times. Yes, you would like to see them play better and be more competitive, but they've lost twice to the Saints, who are all in. I mean, they're all in on this year. I mean, I firmly believe Sean Payton's coaching the Cowboys next year, right? Drew Brees is retired next year if they can go get a Super Bowl. They want to get a Super Bowl, and if that happens, then I think they break up the band in New Orleans. But this is a team that is a very, very good football team, one of the best in the entire NFL. And, there's no shame really in losing to them. Now, again, you would have liked to have played better and showed more effort and more pride, I think. But, it's the Saints. Again, they didn't get blown out in that game by, the Bengals. That would be depressing, but they lost to the Saints so well.
And,
no one expected them to overtake the Saints.
Listen,
not this year.
I hear what you're saying, though, Mark. I really do. There's no shame in losing to the Saints, but it was shameful the way they lost in that particular game.
Mm-hmm.
In that game, we've had a lot of close games. We've had a lot of losses this season, but the way that game went down was just not okay. But listen, we're 2 weeks later. The Bucs have won 2 in a row, albeit to I don't. Certainly to an ailing Jacksonville team, a Falcons team that hasn't done good overall on the whole year, but they were just coming off of a couple of good weeks. So especially
including holding the Saints to 9 points.
Exactly.
I mean, so they at New Orleans. I mean, so
right.
They were playing pretty good football at the time.
Right. So with that, Mark, I guess here we are. We're at the precipice of the final quarter of the season. Where are you? Where do you think we're going with these Buccaneers here in the last 4 games, with the playoffs just a fingernail's breadth away from being out of reach?
I don't know where the final destination is. I really don't. I hope, and I actually wrote about it. Maybe I talked about it on the podcast. I can't remember, but maybe I even just mentioned it on Twitter. Let's not forget Tony Dungy's first year when they started 1-8. Mm-hmm. And they went down the stretch, and I think they won 5 of their last 6 games, something like that, and finished the season at 6-10. And then the next year they started 97 with 5 straight wins, and of course they made the playoffs that year and faced the closed out Houlihan Stadium with a win against Detroit before going and losing to Green Bay in the divisional playoff game. So you gotta start somewhere. And again, I don't know if this is the 1996 Buccaneers, right? I don't know, but there's some pieces there. There were some pieces in 1996 with a Derek Brooks and a Warren Sapp. And, hey, don't look now, but there's a Devin White and there's Vita Vea. And, again, this could all come tumbling down if they lose out or something and end up with just 5 wins. I mean, but I think there's a chance that they finish this year with 7 wins. I think that's very realistic. And a few weeks ago, I don't think many people saw that coming, right? They're talking about, who you're going to get with one of those first 5 draft picks. Right now, They're out of the top 10 for the first time in a long time. So I don't know where it ends up, but, they've got to win this game against the Colts. This is a game that a Colts team that is better on paper at the beginning of the year, certainly, than the Buccaneers, but a team that's banged up, they're injured, and they're not playing very good football right now. So this is one of those games where the Buccaneers need to capitalize. They've won 2 on the road in a row. Let's see them get one at home. You know what I mean? I would like to see a performance like they had against Atlanta and Jacksonville in a home game, because even the home game that they won this year was against who they beat? They beat Arizona. Yeah. What was that, 30-27, something like that? I mean, that game, without that interception there towards the end by Jamel Dean, that could have been a loss. So, I'd like to see them do what they've done the last 2 weeks in front of the home crowd. I think the home crowd, number one, deserves it. But if they're able to do that, then I think they have maybe turned a little bit of a corner. I'm not certainly saying they're going to start next season with a 5-0 record like the 97 Buccaneers did, but I see some parallels to that 96 team with this team right now. I really do.
Yeah, Mark, Ren here. As you just talked about, and it's these 2 wins have sort of lit a fire underneath Buccaneers fans, or at least Buccaneers Twitter, and people are excited about what can happen. I've gone on record saying that they're going to win out. We'll see. Obviously, I think the Texans are the biggest hurdle there.
Right.
But you just talked about how they're trending up and they turned the corner, and everybody who's anybody has taken a shot at Bruce Arians for when he said back in training camp that the secondary's fixed. Now, the Buccaneers have played, good defense the past 2 weeks. Surprise, surprise. 2, even I think a cynical Buccaneers fan could say they were pretty dominating wins. An optimistic Buc fan say they definitely were dominating wins because the defense showed up. But the front 7 has always showed up. So really the back end showed up. So without, I'm not going to hold you to it, but now that you've seen these guys, the exit of Vernon Hargreaves, and you see these guys get some games under their belt, was Bruce Arians crazy, or is the secondary fixed?
I think the talent. I think he said it. I think if he could go back, he would not say fixed. I think he would say, potentially we have it fixed, and at some point this year it's going to show, because it was not fixed earlier in the year for the first 8 games or so. It was bad, really bad, and obviously statistically the worst in the NFL at times, if not through that whole stretch. So. It was really bad, and they've turned a corner there, and I think I'm not trying to beat up Vernon Hargreaves, because I was the only one on the Pewter Report staff that had the Buccaneers selecting Vernon Hargreaves. I said it that morning before the draft on 620. We were in studio, and I said, I think they take Hargreaves, and I had spoken to somebody earlier in the year, and I knew they really, really liked him a lot. I wasn't 100% sure. Nobody was, and they weren't even sure that morning exactly, because you never know who's going to fall. But so I'm not trying to beat up Vernon Hargreaves at all. But I don't know that it's a coincidence that all of a sudden the secondary's got better without Vernon Hargreaves there, and I don't mean that from he was bringing him down with his play on the field, although I think he was. But I think from a wake-up, standpoint, and we had Raheem Nunez, Nacho Roches on our podcast last night that we're going to put out tomorrow, and he said it was an eye-opener because, here's a first-round draft pick, right? A guy still on his rookie contract, a guy who, was picked, 12th that year? I think they moved down from 9th to 12th, something like that, with that trade with the Bears. But,
yeah.
and they were Nacho wasn't shocked that he was cut. He was shocked that he was cut in the middle of the season. And look, I loved Aqib Talib's play because I thought he was a very talented cornerback. Now, he was a pain in the rear, right? Not media friendly, could be a real jerk at times. Obviously, we know about all his off the field exploits, but when it was practice time, Aqib Talib worked his ass off, right? A lot like Warren Sapp, all right? You don't have to like Warren Sapp, but when the football helmet came on, he was a football player. And I don't know that Vernon Hargreaves wasn't that. This is kind of some speculation. But again, think about it. If you're in these meeting rooms Monday watching film and number 28's not hustling and you've got all these young guys up there and, he's not being held accountable, then that becomes the acceptable way to play. Right. So I think it was a calculated move on the Buccaneers' part to send a message not just to the whole team, but really in particular that young secondary. And again, I don't think it's a coincidence that this team is playing better after Vernon Hargreaves was cut when he was cut. And, again, we'll see how it goes. And there's no question about it. Just the snaps, right? The repetition, getting better. Sure. We saw Carlton Davis get better last year from that first game against New Orleans where Michael Thomas ate him for lunch, right? To the end of the year, he was playing a little bit better, right? There was confidence with him coming in this year. But, a lot of it, it had to do with the fact that just they had to see it. Coach Bowles and Kevin Ross can explain to these cornerbacks what to expect, but until they are out there doing it over and over, it's like I teach at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting from time to time, and I tell these young broadcasters and people that want to get into the media that you're not going to get any better on the air. You're not just going to wake up and be good, in other words. It's only going to come through repetition. If I listen to my first podcast 3 years ago to today, I think I'm better. I know that you guys would probably say you're better than the first time you flipped the button and went live. And certainly the first story I wrote for Pewter Report, I write better than I did then. But it's taken years to get to that point. And, it's just very rare that you see a cornerback step into the NFL. And, your Denzel Wards, those are few and far between, right? It just doesn't happen that fast with a lot of these guys, like a Marcus Lattimore. It's a rarity. And those guys were, first-round draft picks. We're talking about some second, third, fourth-round guys that's just going to take a little bit longer, and I think that's part of it. They've went through trial by fire, if that's the right cliche I'm trying to use here. I think they've gotten better just from repetition, but I don't think that it's a 100% coincidence that they started playing better when Vernon Hargreaves was let go either.
Well, Mark, I know you said you didn't want to beat up on VH3, and I'll let you guard yourself as far as how far you want to go, but I'll let you beat up on VH3. You're actually the first person that we've gotten to talk to who has access to the team, in the locker room, things like that, since VH3 got cut. And I'm just curious, we kind of has the feel of the locker room changed at all that you've noticed since his departure that is less, it was the wake-up call that everybody needed, and more like, has a cancer finally been, extracted from the locker room? Was he a thing there, or really is it just he was just a guy, but the change has just been this wake-up call, and these guys are getting more playing time now?
Yeah, no, he was not a cancer in the locker room. We've got that on good authority from some people in the building, in management. That wasn't the case. It wasn't the reason they got rid of him. I think it was a calculated message sent by Bruce Arians that it doesn't matter where you were drafted, what your name is. Now people want to play devil's advocate. They could say, well, why didn't he cut Jameis Winston after 5 interceptions or 6 interceptions against Carolina and London? A little bit different when you're talking about the guy who has been your quarterback, is the guy, number 1 overall draft pick, and you're trying to determine your team's future. You can find another cornerback a lot faster than you can find a quarterback. You know what I mean? I understand where some people would come from if they were to take that angle. Well, accountability for him, but where's the accountability with some of these other guys? But I think we've seen it. We saw O.J. Howard in that game a couple of weeks ago not see the field after that interception against the Saints. And we saw Ronald Jones,
Well, we saw it
get
with
benched.
Rojo.
So,
Yeah.
there is an accountability message being sent in that locker room, more so than we've seen in years past. And part of that is because you can cut a Vernon Hargreaves because you feel pretty comfortable in Jamel Dean. I make no mistake. If Vernon Hargreaves was playing as well as, say, Aqib Talib was, then they probably don't cut him, regardless of if he's loafing on a few plays. So it was a combination of a lot of things. I don't think it was just one specific thing, but I can't say with pretty good confidence that no, it wasn't a situation where they felt that he was a cancer per se in the locker room. No.
Yeah, okay. That's enough for Vernon for me. One of the reasons that we love having, you and Trevor and Scott on the podcast is because really it kind of cuts our work in half, like maybe even less.
Mm-hmm.
Because all we have to do is say a couple of words and boom, you guys are off because you know your business, you know what you're talking about, and you've already got these, opinions formulated in your head because you're constantly thinking about it, constantly writing about it,
right.
Constantly crafting your takes. Devin White.
Again, I was a big fan of Devin White going all the way back to January when we started looking at draft prospects and in earnest. I mean, Scott and Trevor obviously do it a lot more than me, and they do it year-round. Scott's looking at guys already for next year, obviously, so is Trevor with his job with the Draft Network. I knew who Devin White was because, as much as I'm a Florida State guy, I love 3:30 CBS SEC games, and it doesn't matter who's playing. I love watching LSU. I really enjoyed the Alabama-Auburn game the other day. I really look forward to that game. And so, I'd seen Devin White play on a number of occasions, but he really caught my eye when Scott put him in our first mock draft in January. I remember where we were. We were in Mobile, actually. And Scott, before we went to that practice that day, he's like, you got to watch some of this guy's highlights. I'm telling you, this is the guy. And I'm like, come on, man, it's January. But there was just something about this guy, just watching his highlights on film. And again, it's his highlights, right? There's not a lot of low-light clips out there on YouTube. They don't normally put those out there. They're only going to put the best out there. But he was certainly a man amongst boys at times in the SEC, which obviously I'll even admit is the best conference overall in college football. So the guys that he went up against are guys that are playing in the league. The Josh Jacobs that is, one of the candidate for Rookie of the Year with the Raiders and some of these other guys. I mean, he played with Leonard Fournette, a guy that's one of the top guys in the AFC right now as far as rushing goes. So, his game film was good. It was solid. And, yes, I was kind of torn as far as, gosh, but he's an inside middle linebacker, right? I mean, he's an inside linebacker at number 5. I mean, that just doesn't happen very often in the league. But the Buccaneer organization really felt that he was a and I wrote in my mailbag on Monday, once in a every few years player. I really believe they think he's a one in a generation type player, right? One every 10, 12 years come along in the mold of a Patrick Willis and some of these guys, a Ray Lewis, the guys that can just, they saw this guy as a potential future Hall of Famer before they drafted him. And so I bought into that. But at the same time, you look at the other needs on the football team. There wasn't an offensive lineman there that you take at number 5. There wasn't a Quentin Nelson from the year before sitting there, or Anthony Munoz, once in a generation offensive lineman there. So you have really reached, I think, at that point for an offensive lineman. But there was Josh Allen sitting there at the same time, and he was the guy that I liked a lot. So, but they went with Devin White, and I think he's done nothing but make them feel justified with that pick. Now, again, it's early in his career. You're 11 games in. He missed 2 or 3 with that injury that he suffered against Carolina. But, man, things have really slowed down for him. And talking to Nacho on our podcast, and people can listen to that on Wednesday when we put it up in the afternoon, he just raved about the guy. I mean, the guy, he really has no idea how good he can be. And he said the same thing about Vita Vea. I mean, he plays beside Vita, and he's like, this guy he doesn't even realize how good he can be. I mean, he said he's not just big and strong, he's athletic. And so is Devin. I mean, Devin's fast, he's athletic, he has a good instinct for the ball. And I don't remember when I said it, if I said it on our podcast or on somebody else's, or I don't even remember anymore, but it all blurs together at this point. But the thing I like about Devin White as opposed to Quan, and I like Quan Alexander. He was really good at the Pewter Report, really nice guy, went through some tragedy with his brother, and, he was the fire starter in that locker room. But Quan was such an instinctive player that he didn't always play within the scheme of the 11 guys the other 10 guys on the field, if that makes sense, right? Devin he's in the right place. He may not, hit the knockout plays, right? I mean, he's not, he may not be the Ray Lewis, but he's not Barrett Root either, where he's tackling guys 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And he's also not Quan Alexander, where he's just guessing and just going 110 miles an hour. Remember Michael Pittman? Michael Pittman, when he ran the football, was like a cartoon character. Cartoon when their feet are spinning before they get going. Michael Pittman came out, took the ball, and he was running 130 miles an hour. Didn't matter if there was a hole there. He was wide open, right? And Quan Alexander was kind of like that as a defensive player. And you love that passion that these guys have, but it's not always the smartest way to play football. What I've seen from Devin White is the athleticism of a Quan Alexander, but with the smarts of a guy like a Derek Brooks and a Levante David. And I think he's very fortunate to have his locker next to Levante David and to play next to him and to be able to sit in those meeting rooms, because Levante David, certainly, I think we all three would agree, one of the most underrated players in the NFL, not just linebackers, but in all of the NFL. He just doesn't get the due that he deserves. And but Devin White is learning a lot from Levante David, and right now everything's going great. You hope it stays that way. You hope he continues to work hard, to spend the extra time to film study, because the athleticism's there. So, I think the Buccaneers made the right pick. Josh Allen's having a tremendous year for the Jaguars. We saw him just kick Lamar Dotson's ass on a regular basis Sunday. But I mean, he's good. He's really good too. But I think both the teams are very pleased with who they ended up with.
Well, Mark, we've got you for just 3 more minutes, so I'll do what Ren did. The entire defensive line outside of Vita Vea, because we still have him on a rookie deal, and Jameis Winston needing to re-sign some of them, if not all of them.
Well, I think obviously Shaq Barrett is priority number one on the defensive side of the ball. I think in a perfect world, he's signed to a long-term deal, and I would love for them to try and get it done sooner rather than later, because at 14.5 sacks, he's a $14 million a year player. I kind of look at it like this, right? However many sacks you are, that's $1 million for every sack. I don't think that's unrealistic at all. If you have 14 sacks, you're a $14 million guy, probably in the open market. Well, if he ends up with 19 sacks, now all of a sudden you're looking at another $5 million. So, I think the Buccaneers have reached out. I don't know that for sure. I'm speculating, but it would make sense if they've reached out to his agent. His agent may be saying, hey, let's gamble that you end up with, 17, 18, 19 sacks before it's done. We don't want to leave any money on the table. But as Ian Beckles said when I was on with Ron and Ian on 620 last week, Ian said, but his agent works for him. And if Shaq wants to sign, he should sign. And I say that because how many guys we've seen gamble on waiting until the end of the year or the offseason, and, they suffer a Quan Alexander-type injury. Now, it worked out for Quan. He still got his money. Yeah. But a lot of times it doesn't, right? Then you're on a one-year prove-it or a lesser deal as you if he gets hurt in December, just, again, I'm going to find some wood and knock on here. But just say it's an ACL tear middle of December, you're looking at 8 to 12 months. So you're looking at, there's no way he's ready probably for the start of the season. And so, again, I don't know that he gets $14 or $15 million a year on the open market in that case. Maybe he does. I don't know. Quan's was in October, so, he was ready for the start of the season. But that's not the case for everybody. ACLs are different. And again, I hope and pray, and I'm certainly not trying to jinx the guy, but the bottom line is it's a gamble if he waits, if there's money on the table from the Buccaneers. And when you're making, I think, $4 million this year on a one-year deal, $14 million sounds like, Jesus, I couldn't even imagine what I would do with that kind of money, right? I'd never have to work another day in my life with just 1 year of that type of a contract. So, he can go ahead and set up his family's financial future for the rest of his life and probably his kid's life if he were to sign a deal right now. But again, he could be leaving a bunch of money on the table. But in a perfect world, he's the guy that you sign first. You tag Jameis. You're not going to lose Jameis. You can lose Shaq, right? You can keep Jameis if you want to keep him. You can tag him. He's under the power there, so they don't have any. There's no problem there. There's no worry there. But then I think after that, then you have to look at JPP, and I think he only has 3.5 sacks, but he didn't come back until that Tennessee game last month. So it's not like he has 3.5 and he's played 11 games or 12 games. He hasn't. But what he means to this football team, again, there's no coincidence that this team has started playing better when he was in the lineup, and he makes everybody around them better, and he demands excellence. He is the enforcer in that locker room. There's no question about that at all. So I think, the Buccaneers saved a little bit of money this year by avoiding that last year. I don't know if they're kicking themselves in the rear because they had him under contract already. And now he's an unrestricted free agent when the season ends. So I think he would be priority number two. And then I think Ndamukong Suh. I know that a lot of people just assumed he was a one-year rental. Let's see what he can do. $8 million roughly with up to $10 million in incentives. But if you could get him back for another year, why mess up something that's working? Do whatever you can under your own, within your power to keep what's working together, right? Why, fire the lead singer or your lead guitar player, right? It's a band, and that's the way you got to look at it with this football team. That front seven is a band, and right now, they're Led Zeppelin, right? They're not Milli Vanilli. So keep them together if you can. That's what I would try and do. And then, like you say, Carl Nassib, another guy that's an important piece. I don't think he's going to command outrageous money, but don't look now. I think he's got 5.5 sacks, and if we're going by $1 million per sack, well, he could end up being an $8 or $9 million player. I don't know where all the money comes from, but I do know this: if there's any front office that I'm confident in, it's Mike Greenberg and the job he does with the salary cap and the way he's able to maneuver things. The fact that there's so little dead money on this football team, usually the top, if not number one, they're number two in the league with the least amount of dead money. So they do a great job with their contract situation. So I think that's kind of the priority order if you were to ask me. Now, I do know that Shaq is the number one priority. I will say that we know that for sure. But we'll see. They can't. It's not, will they lose him? It's, I think Jenna tweeted out, how can they not re-sign the guy? And that's the deal. He's going to be back. Right. And I asked him on What's Cooking a couple weeks ago. People can check that out on FeedReport.com. He was one of our guests, and he said, he wants to be back. And off camera, he said, he'd even be willing to give a little bit of a hometown discount because he wants to stay in Tampa. His family likes it here. He likes it here. He loves playing under Todd Bowles and playing with his defensive scheme and the guys around him. So I'm 99% sure Shaq Barrett will be back next year in a Buccaneer uniform.
Nice.
Well, that is
breaking
news to
Mark
Buccaneer
Cook,
fans' ears.
Tells us that Shaq Barrett wants to be back in Tampa, and we'll give a discount.
The Cook guarantee.
Yeah,
Yep.
100% not guaranteed, probable, maybe. But I was going to ask you about.
Time it works 100% of the time.
Yes, exactly. I was going to ask you about flipping. What about flipping the franchise tag and giving it to Shaq Barrett and all that kind of stuff? But with all the information you gave me, I don't want to ask that question. But I found something very interesting, and it's a little bit poignant because you did throw out a little bit of shade, even though you were kidding about Gerald McCoy today on Twitter, being a coach killer. But was JPP? You just said he was the enforcer. He's so basically what I hear is he's the leader there in the locker room. If JPP says something, okay, was he like that last year, or would Gerald not let him do that because Gerald's Gerald?
No, I don't think there was really any friction there at all.
I'm not saying friction. I'm saying that Gerald wouldn't let JPP be
this year than it was last year. I'll say that. And I think that's because he's in his second year with the team and he's more familiar and, he's producing, right? Again, we'll go back to what I said. You can't be a leader if your resume sucks.
Right.
Jameis can lead the team in EWs, but if he's throwing 5 or 6 interceptions, eventually, they're going to tune him out. And but people are not tuning JPP out. And I don't think it had anything to do with Gerald last year. I think guys respect each other in the locker room. There is a pecking order to a degree. Gerald wasn't a veteran on this football team, but JPP certainly this year it's a completely different guy. And I think, in all honesty, maybe that car accident made him realize. How short life can be, and how quickly your football career could be taken away from you. And every year is an important year because you don't know how many of your teammates are going to be back next year. You don't know. We saw that with the Buccaneers win a Super Bowl and then have the Super Bowl hangover. The Super Bowl hangover is a real deal, unless you're the Patriots, of course. But for most teams, it is. So, JPP, I think, understands that, he's coming towards the end of his career. He suffered a major injury that could have cost him his career, and he's not going to leave anything to chance. He's not, if there's something that needs to be said, he doesn't give a damn. He's going to say it. And I love that about the guy. He glares at me in the locker room. There's no buddy chit chat with JPP. When he talks, and that's it. You know what I mean? We're not sitting around the locker room saying, hey, did you watch Game of Thrones last night or whatever? There's guys that we do that with. Not Game of Thrones, of course, but you know what I mean. So JPP is not that kind of guy, right? Gerald was that kind of guy with the media, but JPP is no question, unequivocally, is the leader of that defense, and I think that's another reason why this Buccaneer organization wants to definitely get him back next year.
If you've been listening to the show for longer than, say, I don't know, a week, then you already know that our sponsor this year is huntakiller.com. Lots of you have reached out to say how much fun you've been having playing this game, and that's awesome. But if you haven't checked out Hunt a Killer yet, there's no better time than right now. If you subscribe now, not only will you get the monthly box that contains the next batch of clues for solving the mystery and catching the killer, which is what the game is really all about, for a limited time, you're also going to receive the official Hunt a Killer cocktail book so that you and your friends can mix up a few drinks while you guys are hot on the trail of the killer. And along with the cocktail book, you're also going to receive a set of Moscow Mule cups, and you'll get those free with a 6 to 12 month subscription. Just go to huntakiller.com, sign up for your choice of subscription, and use the code PewterCast at checkout to receive 20% off your first order. Now listen, if you're like me and you don't want to wait a month between each box, you can actually order the entire mystery in a premium box and get the whole thing at once. So guys, again, just use the code PewterCast at checkout to get 20% off plus those freebies at huntakiller.com. Well, that was Mark Cook of pewterreport.com dropping some info on us, Ren.
Right?
I know, right?
Like, I mean, I guess we can talk about it now, right?
Yeah. It's off limits, or it's not off limits. It's off limits, on limits, whatever. Yes, we can talk about it.
Double secret, off limits.
Yeah.
So Shaq Barrett, while filming the ever popular web series What's Cooking with Mark Cook,
potentially Pewty award winning this year, depending on what extra categories we come up with.
No,
not that one. Okay, fair enough.
No, please, no. Sponsored by Ford's Garage. Apparently, Shaq Barrett was. I know he was on a couple of weeks ago because I watched it. But off air, Shaq Barrett told Mark Cook that he wants to stay in Tampa, which no big deal. Who's going to say they don't want to come back to the team they're playing for?
Right.
But then he said, I'd even give them a hometown discount.
Right.
Because, and I was so shocked, I don't know if Mark said it or not. What I'm thinking is because, we're the ones who gave him the chance. And that's a lot of sort of this rhetoric that's been going around Twitter. It's like, can we afford Shaq Barrett? It's like, well, it'd really be nice if he gave us a little bit of a discount saying, since we're the ones that gave him a chance in the first place. And he said it.
Yeah.
So he wants to be back, and he'll come back here for cheaper than the highest bidder out there.
Yeah.
And that's
those are two separate things that are music to all of our ears. And by the way, I'm looking at it right now. That particular What's Cooking, I don't know when they filmed it, but it was released November 7th. So this is, in theory, less than 30 days old. This is still recent news. This wasn't something at the beginning of the season, and things have happened.
He's only had one sack.
Exactly.
After the San Francisco games.
Right, but there's two. There's the
He's already hit all his bonuses. He was already leading the league in sacks.
Yeah. He wants to be back. That's the important thing. We talked to was it Zach Blobner or somebody the other day of, do players want to come back? Do they want to be here in Tampa? And I think that's a question. That's certainly a question that I have as a fan of, well, why would players want to come back to Tampa? Do they want to be here in Tampa? And Zach's thing, and I mean, probably rightly so with a lot of players, is they'll follow the money. They'll go wherever the money is, no matter what. But, at some level, do you just want to be here? And Shaq Barrett apparently wants to be here. And, by the way, the money's still going to be here too. But he'd take a little bit less. I'm not saying that...
That's huge news.
That's huge news. And I mean, I want Shaq Barrett to make as much money as he possibly can. But there is a salary cap. We do have to fund stuff. You know what I mean? I know. You just rolled your eyes at me when I said that. There's things they can do. Anyway, Shaq Barrett, I want to talk about him, though, because before he laid that on us, he was talking about the idea that number one priority for the Bucs in re-signing the defensive line is Shaq Barrett. Right. And I would agree. And I'm glad to hear that from somebody who was there in the building, because I think I would love to see them re-sign everybody on the defensive line. There seems to be this magic that's happening there this year. Things are good. Let's not break up the team. The truth is so many of those guys are their deals are done at the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
There's only like 2 that aren't. So, or maybe 3. So there's got to be a priority to how you do it. And Ren, I want to get your thoughts on a priority of these guys. Like if you had to get that, but we've kind of talked about it on this show before about this idea that Shaq Barrett is kind of betting on himself. And at this point, he has driven his value up so much that I feel like, and this isn't just the fan of me, I think this is more the analyst. He is playing a game of deal or no deal, a game of Russian roulette every time he steps out on a practice field, every time he steps out in a game of if he's chasing the dollar. Like if it's true that he's not signing it because he's trying to build that market and see what's going on, like he has built the market.
Signing what?
Before signing his next contract. Like because we heard reports back earlier in the season they were trying to get him to sign, but for whatever reason he didn't. And the speculation, probably rightly so, is he's betting on himself. And Mark Cook said it. He's betting on himself trying to build whatever that next contract is, right? He has built, I'm just saying it's mission accomplished. He's built his next contract.
Sure.
At some point he's got to say deal and just take what's on the table in front of him, right? Because an injury can make a lot of that go away.
Yes.
And that's what I mean. He's playing this kind of, it's a risky game. I feel like he's playing at this point for a lot of money.
Okay.
I just listen on the off chance that Shaq Barrett is actually listening to the Pewtercast, because I know Shaq Barrett listens to every single episode of the Pewtercast. What I'm saying is, Shaq,
that's a fact.
You're putting $14 million at risk for maybe $3 million. Sign the damn paper. Let's make it happen. Or Jason Light, get on it, because you also listen to the Pewter Report, or the Pewter Report. You listen to the Pewtercast as well, and
no one listens to Pewter Report.
Yeah, it's such a bunch of hacks over there. Not at all.
Well, here's what I would say to that, Brent. I'm pretty sure Shaq Barrett's aware that he might get injured.
Sure.
And I don't know where you're getting this $14 million sign it. I don't know where you're getting that number from.
Mark Cook just said it.
Mark Cook said that he thinks that every sack should be $1 million.
Right. He's speculating. I mean, it's all speculation. I'm just putting numbers out there. I'm not saying this is the number that's in front of him.
What do you know? I mean, you don't even know if there's a number in front of him at all.
The reports, you're right. I don't know. But what we have heard even earlier than he was on What's Cooking is the Bucs were trying to get him re-signed. Did it get all the way to actually them pushing a contract across the table at him? And he said, no, we don't know. But
it's true.
Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
Well, he said that he wants to come back,
mm-hmm.
and that he'll do a discount.
Right.
So
right.
I don't know what else to tell you there, man.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying. I feel in every week that this deal isn't done, it's kind of like Peyton Barber a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like Peyton Barber.
I don't understand where the end game is. I know I'm being difficult, but I don't understand where the end game is with this conversation. I mean, basically you're rehashing what Mark Cook talked about for 5 minutes when we talked about Shaq Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
Was that he could get injured, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Where's the question here? Where are you going with this? I don't understand where you're going with this. Shaq Barrett is well aware that if he gets hurt, he's not going to make more money.
Right.
Shaq Barrett is well aware that the Bucs want to sign him.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
Okay, well, podcast over, guys. I guess we have nothing to actually talk about because all these guys know exactly what situation they're in.
I just don't know. I don't understand.
Not everything I have for you, Ren, is a question as much as it is a comment or looking back at this, because I'm actually what I'm doing is I'm taking it a step further of saying that, yes, he's aware and he's putting all of this at risk. Okay.
Right.
What I'm saying is he is at a spot now where it's not just, hey, being aware of it and, hey, it's at risk. He has built his contract. It is a large contract, and he is at a spot now where, and let's throw some numbers out there for shits and giggles, okay?
I think a good number would be $1 million per sack.
Okay, $14 million a year. If he gets to the end of the year, and let's say he has, Mark said 5, that might be a bit much. Let's say 3 more. Okay, maybe it is 5 more. Whatever. Are we paying a defensive end $20 million a year, $19 million a year? Wow, that sounds like a lot. Maybe they will. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. But even still, you're gambling $14 million for potentially making $5 more million. That's the problem. And then we're watching this happen with Peyton Barber right now, right? Peyton Barber was offered a long-term deal. He said no, signed a one-term deal because he's betting on himself, and he's having a season where he's not going to go get some big contract next year.
No. Do you think he'll make more than the 3.25 they offered him?
Based on the year that he's having this year?
Yeah.
With some other team? Or even with the Buccaneers?
Yeah.
Probably not. I don't know. I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt it. I mean,
3.25 is so low for like a starting caliber. I don't want to get into if Peyton Barber is a starting caliber running back because this year he hasn't shown, he just kind of hasn't. But I mean, that seems like a low number. I mean, I don't think he's played bad enough where he would get less.
Yeah, but is it going to be a significant amount more?
Not so far.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, so you're risking it's a cost-benefit analysis. You're gambling this guaranteed money that you could sign for right now for a fraction of a percent more.
Yes, $5 million, the smallest fraction.
You know what I'm talking. You know what I'm talking.
Do you know what you're talking about?
That's it. That's you. Okay, Ren, here's a question. Let's go back to it. And apparently, because my job here is to interview Ren and let him pontificate over us. Ren,
I thought that was the gig.
What would the order of your priority be in re-signing these guys on the defensive line, given that you can't necessarily just re-sign them all?
I'm glad you asked, Brent.
Hey, look at that. I didn't press the record button on this. No, actually I did. It's all here. Go ahead, Ren. What's your priority? Go ahead. Let's hear it.
Well, I would like you to chime in on this as well.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Honestly, it's a tough call for me for between Barrett and JPP.
Okay. Because
we saw JPP do it last year. He's only like in his third or fourth game, really, and he's got like 3.5 sacks, so he's averaging like a sack a game or just below it. But when you when you take into effect his age, I think that does put Shaq Barrett over him, and it makes more sense to be able to put a long-term contract with Shaq Barrett, given his age, than just doing like a 2 or 3 year deal with JPP. So Barrett would be 1, JPP would be 2. I would put Nassib 3 and Sue 4.
Okay.
And it's more of, I think Nassib is a guy who is going to be a little cheaper than I think all those other 3. And I think he's this type of player that you need there on the outside. I like, I'm not nearly as down on everybody as Sue is. I shouldn't say everybody, but, some people out there are as Sue is, and I like what he brings to the team. But I do agree that I feel like his production hasn't matched his price tag, so to speak. And if you had to lose one of those 4 guys, I would rather lose, something in the locker room than lose something on the field. That's how I would rank. What do you think, Brent?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. No, actually, I agree with you. I really do. I feel like we're doing a Buck in the News show where we're talking about the inactives. Down a lot, but you missed a couple. Nacho's deal is expiring this year, and Bo Allen's deal is expiring this year. You just want to let both of those guys walk, or if you put them in there, I think they would be below those 4.
Yeah, yeah. Nacho's salary would be so small it'd be insignificant to sort of the cap.
Right.
He's like Carl Nassib on the inside. His motor's always going. He tries real hard, and when he does, and when he's out there, he shows up. The problem is, Golson's better all around than he is. Sue's better than all around he is. Vea's better than all around he is. I don't know between him and Bo Allen. Like, for some reason, I never see Bo and Allen on the field.
Neither do I.
And I'll see him in the stat sheet, and I'll be like, oh, yeah. But I never, ever, ever see him when I'm watching the game that he's on the field.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's having a good season or if he's having a bad season.
Right.
Like, I don't know. And it's sort of unfair to judge players this way, but this is how we do it. Is his production matching his value, especially when we're talking, because we're talking about salary cap. That's what we're talking about. Because there was, like you said, there's no salary cap, but like, yeah, sign them all back. They seem to be meshing well. Just sign them all back, but you can't. So I really think it's here nor there if Bo Allen or Nacho come back. You know, as a Bucs fan and being sentimental to our guys, I'd like to see him back because I like him. But you know, I really don't know if the coaches are happy with their player or want them to step it up a notch. I just don't know.
Right. I certainly like them more than I like, say, Vin Curry or Chris Baker or some of these other recent signings we've had on the defensive line. Yeah. Like,
and I didn't really have a problem with Curry, except that I thought his money
played.
Well, he got hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought sort of the McCoy-Curry combination over there on the left side was going to, you know, kind of be the side to watch. And he got hurt, and then he came back, and by that time, Nassib was sort of taking his job.
Right.
So it was a little bad luck with Curry. Yeah, he's probably overpaid a little bit, but everyone gets overpaid in free agency. That's what it is. So
did you hear when he went back to the Eagles? Because I think he went back to the Eagles. What he said was, and this is so third-hand information, so take it for what it's worth. But he said something to the effect of he felt like last year, meaning his year with the Bucs, was just a year-long paid vacation.
Yeah, that's
the way he described it. It was just a year paid vacation.
The
place has a lot of beaches. That's it. But no, as far as the priority, Ren, I'm with you. Shaq, JPP,
Matt.
The name I have written down on this paper right next to what I was looking at.
Oh, why?
Because I have scratch paper that I use for 13 other things.
Oh, is that like a caller from the Instacast?
No, it was something from my kid's school that we were looking at, and we were talking about stuff.
What did Matt do?
I am not going to go into all of that with you and explain all the scribble scrabble on my notes. Damn it, Ren, I'm interviewing you here.
Oh, sorry.
No, Shaq, JPP, and I'm with you on struggling between the two of them.
Yeah.
But giving the edge to Shaq because of the intangibles that you just talked about. And then Nassib. Now, Sue, though, I do want to talk about Sue, where you talk about his production hasn't matched his price tag. And my question back to that, because the conversation that often wraps around this is, well, when you look at what he's done, we could have had McCoy. We didn't have to go, he and McCoy are kind of the same and whatever. But I got to tell you, I've seen a lot more out of Sue this year than I ever saw out of Gerald McCoy.
Ever?
And it may not be showing up on the stat sheet, but when I see him in the pile and I see him pulling guys down, or I see him assisting, or I see him scooping up fumbles and scoring, which he's done that, twice now? 3 times?
Yeah, and dropped a pick 6.
Yeah, and I see him and I notice him where I don't want to say never, I almost never did with Gerald.
Yeah.
I just didn't. And I don't, players cost what players cost, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know that I agree with the idea that his production hasn't matched his value. I just think maybe and this is the question to ask, are we actually measuring his production with the right measurables?
Well, that's the old Gerald McCoy debate, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
It's like, well, he's getting double teamed all the time.
Right.
Well, he's doing his job. He's getting penetration. And I'm with you. Like, every time I look up and something happens in the backfield, Sue's right there.
Yeah.
It's not like he, sack Bear gets a sack, but Sue's like one step behind. Mm-hmm.
Or Sue's coming in pushing the quarterback into Shaq Barrett.
Yeah, like there's, and from, I think Jenna tweeted it out, by the time this comes out, maybe a couple of days ago, that he's like 5th in the league at getting double teamed.
Is he really? Wow.
Yeah, like the number of double teams. And it was something like 157 or 137 double teams he's faced already, and he's like 5th in the league getting double teamed. So, I mean, I'm with you. I just, honestly, I didn't really want to kind of start a firestorm between is Sue worth it and Sue's not, because there's a certain sect out there, and just saying Sue's just stealing money. Mm-hmm. They're saying he's Vinnie Curry. He's getting unpaid vacation, right. And I don't necessarily agree with it, and I definitely don't want to get into it. But of those 4, I just think that it's close. I would love to keep Sue because I like his attitude. I like his intangibles. Right. I love how smart he is. I love that he's a very good communicator. And it's not like a Quan or a Devin White type of communication. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, let's sit down. All right, let's have a talk. It's more like it's very thought out, very thorough. I feel, and very calm way that he can talk to these younger guys or other people on the team, and I like that a lot. But I don't want to lose Nassib because he's cheaper and he makes quote unquote bigger splash plays.
Sure.
Like, he gets sacks.
He's a team captain.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a team captain. So, all that accounts for stuff. No, I'm with you. If you have to pick between Nassib and Sue, I think Nassib is your bigger priority if you're Jason Light and you're Bruce Arians in this team. But the 4 I would love to keep. Nacho and Bo Allen, give or take whatever, I don't care. It seems
like you said about Peyton Barber to the Instacast. Yeah. If they're there, great. If they're not, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bring Peyton Barber back. If he's there, great. I don't know, whatever. Exactly. Same thing with those guys. But these 4, I'd love to see them back, but in that order: Shaq, JPP, Nassib, and Sue. And quite honestly, the line between JPP and JPP and Shaq is really thin. Not quite as thin with the line between Nassib and Sue for me, but it's still pretty close. I'd love to keep them all. So
yeah, if we talked about this and went to 100 people, I would have no problem with people switching 1 and 2 or switching 3 and 4.
Right.
But if you start switching 1 and 4 or 2 and 3 or 3 and 1, that's where, you're wrong.
Right. All right. Well, that was it. So that was Mark. Man, do you have anything else out of Mark's conversation you wanted to bring up or talk about?
Do we want to talk about Vernon for another 20 minutes?
Well, we could. Less talking about Vernon and more I want to talk about what Nacho said in response to Vernon getting cut.
Sure.
Which was he wasn't shocked that VH3 got cut. He was just shocked that it happened mid-season.
Right.
And if you have a guy like Nacho who, let's face it, he's there, he's around.
He's not in the quarterback's room.
Right. But he's also not he is not safe every single week either. He is not a top of the roster guy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's going, that guy's going to get cut. I mean, if he's thinking that,
you
got to know a lot of other people are like, Vernon ain't going to make it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When the guy near the bottom of the ladder is looking at you, somebody who's supposed to be at the top of the ladder and going, I'm going to be here longer. There's something.
I got a better chance at coming back next year than he does.
And it's the same thing we've heard. I mean, it really is. Mark didn't say it. I've heard him sort of rumor about before, but I'm definitely not trying to put words in his mouth. Blobner kind of danced around it. We had him on because, he's a big Gator fan. Vernon never loved football, and he never took it serious. And that's how he was in the locker room. That's how he was in the field. That's how he was when he practiced. He never took it serious. And it's just it's so telling, and this might be a little unfair, but it's so telling. You brought it up about when Brent Grimes kind of signed his jersey and go get your money, son. And
that was D-Jax, by the way, not Grimes, but yeah.
Was it D-Jax?
It was D-Jax, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then this doesn't apply at all. But what I'm saying is, it's just I kind of wonder if something would have been different if Vernon would have came up under somebody besides Brent Grimes.
Sure.
Because he plays like Brent Grimes.
He does.
Which is making business decisions. It's not my job really to tackle that guy as long as I sort of corral him out of bounds like a sheepdog.
Yeah.
Honestly,
for whatever it's worth, Ren, I don't think it's that different because Brent Grimes and D-Jax strike me as very similar in all of those terms. They're both making business decisions. They're both
That's true.
Sort of, you know what I mean? I could see how that trio actually might kind of, I don't know that Brent Grimes and D-Jax were good friends, but I mean, Vernon had a relationship somewhat with both of those guys, and it's the same message, honestly, from both of those guys.
Yeah. It was like me first, and I don't know. It's just so many things. But to sort of, kind of cap it off, Vernon never took football or never took being a Tampa Bay Buccaneer seriously enough. And that's really the end of the story. That's really what it is. Yeah. And now he's gone.
Yeah.
That's it.
And the other players knew it.
Yeah.
And they saw it. And they weren't shocked that it happened just at the timing of it. That's, you got to think that's huge. And I like him putting down to the idea, it wasn't that he was a cancer in the locker room as much as this was a calculated decision to send a message to the team. Yeah. And we're not going to risk a fifth-year option.
And part of it, they had to wait for these guys to be, game ready
to go. Yeah.
And as soon as they felt that they were, it's like, all right, see ya.
Yeah. Okay. So last thing I want to talk to you about that, just kind of jumping off of what you just said there.
Sure.
It's something that I saw in social media a very little bit this past week, but just to make this point uber clear, but to have this discussion.
You don't want to take Grant Delpit safety at LSU in the first round.
No, I think we should. I think we absolutely should, Ren. And I don't understand what your actually, I have no idea who this guy is. No.
Shout out Evan Winter.
There you go. Once again, another guy. Let's just get these two guys on and Go. Let you guys go. Mark Magana, Ren Daxt, and Evan Winter all walk into a bar.
Oh, God.
Hit record. Go. Shout out to our friends at Real Bucs Talk. The 96
Oh,
team.
no, that's Mark Ramirez.
What did I say?
Mark Magana.
No, yeah, I meant Mark Ramirez. Sorry, Mark Magana, another friend of ours. I meant Mark Ramirez in this particular situation. Although,
yeah, that would be great.
Ren Dax, Mark Magana, Mark Ramirez, and Evan Winter all walk into a bar.
Yeah, that would not end well. Someone would definitely be storming out.
Yeah, I'm just running the board, capturing the audio. That's all I'm doing in that conversation. Mark referenced the 96 team, the Tony Dungy team.
Which Mark? Ramirez or Magana?
Cook.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yes, okay.
The 96 team where they went 1-7 and then they came out and they won the last 6 in a row. Okay. Mm-hmm. You put that in today's world. Well, what's happening every time they win a game there at the end? Well, they're already out of the playoffs. Now they're just ruining the draft. Now they're they should lose out. They don't even know how to do this right. Yeah. When we talk about
That's a great impression, by the way.
Hey, I'm working on it actually.
That was spot on.
Yes,
I think you should break it out.
Listen, it's my that comes out of my private tutoring with Frank Welker. So,
is that a name on your scratch pad?
No, Frank Welker. He is the voice of Curious George and Megatron and Scooby-Doo and Fred from Scooby-Doo and a whole list of other voices that is just amazing. The guys, anyway, Frank Welker. Look him up. If you don't know who I'm talking about, look him up. He's been in everything that needs a voice. Anyway, blowing their draft position.
Yes.
This is the thing. Every time the Bucs win from here on out, that's the other needle that begins to stick. Because they're losing draft position because we're not playing for the playoffs now. You hear it on other Buccaneer podcasts, all of that. I can understand in previous years where they might kind of have a point of if you just went out meaningless wins, right?
Right.
This is different though.
Yeah.
And I want to get your thoughts on why this feels different this year.
Well, there's a couple.
I'm sorry. Should I phrase that in the form of a question?
That was form of a question. Right?
No, it was a statement. I would like to get your thoughts on why. But go ahead, Brent. Go ahead.
Okay. One, in years past, the team was not ready to compete, if we're being honest, and wasn't a player or two players away from competing,
right? Because
we were that bad. So when you're in that sort of realm, the weight of, hey, quit winning these late season games because you're just hurting yourself carries a little more weight.
Right.
I am of the school, and I know you are too, Brent, that it doesn't matter. You go out there to win, it may hurt you. It may not, because the person that you would have picked at 3 could turn out to be a bust, and the person you got at 9 ends up being a Hall of Famer. You just don't know. But I can understand that type of thing.
Right. Now,
with this team, and we talked about it a little bit, it's there's not a lot of holes on this team as far as starters go. The Bucs are very close to, and I know things are going to change and people are going to leave and go, and there's always going to be one or two spots you'd like to upgrade, or there's going to be maybe a big hole. It's we need a starting, I don't know, center in 3 years or 2 years, and we got to get one in the first 2 days of the draft. I understand how all those things change, but we're almost to the spot as a club that Jason Light has built, including totally missing on that 2017 draft, missing everybody, right, that we can almost 2016. We can almost take BPA, best player available, all the time.
Sure.
We really can. So what that means is you do have a team that can compete with anybody else, and seriously compete.
Right.
The offense can score with anybody, and this defense is starting to catch up. And when they do, if the defense can hold a team like the old Bucs used to be, just get a 17 points will make that hold up. And right now, I swear to you, it's if I would say 24.
Yeah. Get us 24 points.
No, the other way. If the defense can not give up more than 24 points,
right,
we'll go 12-4.
Yeah.
I think the offense, and that's with Jameis
and the interceptions and all that stuff.
Stupid Jameis. Yeah. I think I think we're that talented, or I should really say, I think Jameis competes that hard. I think Jameis is that talented to be able to get the ball, even with all his mistakes, even with all the penalties, even without having a running game. He still,
even with the shoddy
O-line, he still makes it happen.
Yeah.
He still makes it happen. So
with the help of Edwards and Godwin and Howard when he's playing well, and a third wide receiver when he finally decides to show up. And yeah.
And he still does it when they don't show up.
Yeah, and a running game.
But when they do, it's easy all of a sudden. When they do show up, we're up 25-0 at halftime.
Right.
Yeah. So we're to the point where it doesn't really matter where it doesn't matter as much where we draft.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is learn how to win.
Yeah.
And get a belief in these guys. Bruce Arians said it after, the second game. We're showing up to stadiums knowing we can win. I don't know if that's him talking to the team or he really believes that. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably more talking to the team than he really believes it now. Because that's how I feel. I don't really I want to believe it. Mm-hmm. I think it's true, but I really don't. I'm not like, we're going to win this game, like we were back in the day with the Dungey Buccaneers. Like, we're going to win. Like, I knew it Wednesday.
Right.
Before the game on Sunday.
Right.
So us winning these late games is more important to the future for 2020, learning for these guys how to win, than it is for like 5 or 6 draft spots.
Right. And this is different, because I echo everything you just said. This is different than merely saying, hey, we're going to build some momentum going into next year. You know what I mean? Like, it's different than that. It's not about momentum.
Yeah.
It's about these young guys in the secondary getting playing time in an NFL game and being successful.
And playing to well enough to, look, we can win.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And getting different looks from different quarterbacks and getting different looks from various offenses and going up against the different wide receivers, being able to compete with them, knowing what they look like so that when they come back next year, and again, this isn't momentum, this is just experience. It's not about momentum, it's about experience.
Getting Scotty Miller experience.
Exactly. And I think that's
getting OJ Howard out of the slump.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be my mantra going forward with this. It's not about momentum, it's about experience. It's about getting these guys experience. That's really what it is. So, all right, Ren. Well,
I'm glad we talked that through.
Yeah. We've had our little heart-to-heart moment here tonight, all the way through. Well, Ren, this is typically the part of the show where we would just sort of shut things down, and we'd come back with another show a little bit later on this week. But as it is with holidays, and actually I've kind of noticed this over the last couple of years, we get to this part of the season, all those emails kind of tend to drop off, and we've only got like kind of 1.5 to go through. So we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we're going to get to those emails, and we'll call it the show for the week, for the Final Thought show. So guys, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Well, you made me weep, and you made me moan. Well, you caused me to leave, child, my happy home. But someday, baby, you ain't worry my life anymore.
All right, welcome back to the Pewtercast for our third and final segment of this episode, which would normally be its own show, Ren. A little unusual, kind of going back to the old days, but that's okay. Typically, we talk about iTunes reviews and things like that. We had a couple of ratings come in here over the holiday weekend, but no new reviews. So thank you to those of you who left us a rating, and they were 5 stars, so thank you for that. But we also enjoy the reviews. You guys go over to iTunes or Apple Podcast, whatever it is, and leave us a review. We will read it on an upcoming episode. We did have a couple
sorry.
Go ahead.
Since it is the holiday season, anyone who leaves us a 6-star review, we will send you $100.
It's true, as long as it's on Apple Podcasts.
Yes, because there might be a podcast out there that actually does have 6 stars.
Right. Teamwork.
Or you could say only on iTunes. Anyone who leaves a 5-star review on iTunes, will give you $100. iTunes doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, true. Good call. Unless they have the program still down. No, I guess not. Anyway, hey, our first email.
Aren't you glad I interrupted?
I am absolutely glad.
This is the extended version of our Tuesday show.
There you go. Our first email comes in from Kentucky Paul. He says, hey guys, improvement in the second half of the season is what I hoped for from this coaching staff. It's good to see because I was questioning how effective this team would be. I'm happy to be wrong if it means the Bucs win more games. Do you guys think we're seeing real improvement, or is this we just beat a couple of bad teams? I'm hopeful for a win against the Colts, and I'll be at the game cheering them in person. Thanks.
Yes and yes.
Yes.
It really is. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we played a couple of bad teams, but not only, but it wasn't like the Raheem Morris 10-6 year. You know?
Okay, explain.
Well, Raheem Morris, first year as head coach, he goes 10-6. But it was the easiest schedule I've ever seen a Buccaneers team have.
Okay.
And they were barely winning these games. Like, they were fighting tooth and nail with crappy teams to, kick a field goal as time ran out, like week after week to get to these 10 wins.
Right.
But when you play a team like Atlanta and you play a team like Jacksonville, what do? You dominate them and you beat them by double digits. That's what the Patriots would do. That's what the Saints would do. Like, the Saints don't make excuses because you're a crappy team. They beat the crap out of you.
Right.
They don't go, oh, we're 10-2. Oh, yeah, but we played 7 teams that aren't very good. That's not their fault, and it's not our fault. It's not like we squeaked by these games, maybe the Cardinals. But, but both is true. We're making progress. Again, Vernon's been ejected. The secondary looks like a brand new secondary. Devin White's coming on very, very strong. The front seven is keeping solid. And, even though Jameis did have 2 turnovers in Jacksonville, in Atlanta early, he really bounced back from that. It was like the defense had his back, and I just felt like it wasn't erratic Jameis, And then I thought he played, a good game, and I thought he had one of his most accurate games against Jacksonville. And everything seems to be kind of coming together. And I know as fans, we thought it was going to happen like week 1 or week 6. Or around there, and like, hey, we're gonna get all together and go. But it's still really nice to see that the team is getting it together and go.
Right.
And I've said it, like, we're gonna go undefeated. We might lose to the Texans. I don't know. I don't think we're gonna lose to the Texans. I don't.
Right.
Like, I just don't. I don't. They have a quarterback that can make plays and can keep them in the game, and they have Vernon Hargreaves.
Right. Which, did I hear he got benched in Texas as well?
Oh, who knows?
They pulled him out? I don't know. I don't watch the Texans. Anyway, no, I agree with you. Yes, they were bad teams, but look, you can only beat the teams that are on your schedule.
Yep.
I mean,
Patriots have been doing it for 14 years.
It's part of
the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins twice a year.
Yeah. It's nearly 6 wins every single year. I'd be interested to know, of the last decade and a half that the Patriots have been playing and been in that division, how many times have they swept the entire division, or like 5-1, or maybe even 4-2? Like, how much did they really benefit?
I bet 5-1 or above. I bet they're like 90%.
You think so? So 5-1 or 6-0 in their division. You think they've done that 90% of the time,
or more?
I'd be interested. I just pure curiosity.
If 6-0, I would give like 75%.
You think so? Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Beat all 3 of the teams twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they always seem to lose like to Miami in Miami, like every year. It's just weird.
Right.
Like somehow the Dolphins have their number.
Right.
But no one else is even close. But I would say that. Like, I went and looked not too long ago, and by not too long ago, I mean like lifetime. I don't mean by weeks. It might have been last year or the year before that. Like, the Patriots won that division something like 14 times in the past 15 years, and the Dolphins are the only team that won it. And I don't even know what happened. Like, maybe Tom Brady, I don't know, died or something for a year and then came back to life.
Right.
Have you watched that Paul Rudd series, Living with Yourself?
No, I haven't.
Okay, real quick, everybody. There's just I think it's Netflix. Paul Rudd has this new series, Living with Yourself, and what it is, he's kind of like, he's in midlife crisis and he's depressed, and him and his wife can't have a kid, and then there's just one guy at work who's a total putz but starts killing it, and basically tells him, like, here, call this number, it's ultra exclusive, by the way, it costs you $50,000, and that's it. Come to find out, it's a cloning process.
Okay.
And so what they do is they kind of retake all your good stuff, the best parts of you, and puts that into a clone, and they kill you and bury you somewhere out in the forest. But your clone has all your memories and everything. It makes a better you,
Okay.
And then you go out in the world and, you're still you, but you're the clone, but it's only the best parts of you. So, like, all the worries, fears, doubts, bad genes are all gone. All right. Before he does this, when he's pulling up and hands Paul Rudd trying to decide if he wants to do this or not. He doesn't even know it's a cloning thing. He just knows it's some type of spa. Tom Brady walks out and he looks at him and he goes, and
I'm
he's
so
like
glad that
staring
you brought this back to our topic of conversation because, like, where the hell is he going with this?
So Paul Rudd's staring at him and he rolls down the window and Tom looks at him and he goes, first time? And Paul Rudd, dumbfounded, jaw slack, like just shakes his head, yes. And Tom Brady goes, sixth, and gets in his car and leaves.
That's funny. That would explain a lot because Tom Brady.
So I'm assuming that year
yeah.
the Dolphins won the division
2008
was a year that he either missed his cloning or he got a bad clone.
Right.
Or maybe they buried the wrong one. Like they buried clone 3 instead of clone 2.
Right. And put clone 2 back out there.
Yeah. So that's the only explanation I can come up with.
There you go. Yeah. No, they have won their division every single year since 2003, with the exception of that 1 year in 2008. That's crazy. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about the Patriots.
Yeah, because you know what? It's 2020.
Yeah,
everybody.
But anyway, where were we going with this? Oh, winning easy games.
Yeah,
the Buccaneers.
KP from Kentucky.
Yeah, there you go. You can only beat the people that are on your schedule, and this just happens to be the people who are on your schedule. And we're going into a time where we got the Colts, which are not doing as well as they were at the beginning of the season.
No, they're struggling.
We've got the Lions, who are like on their second or third quarterback now? Third quarterback. We've got there's the Texans, which you've just said they've got a really good quarterback and
and one of the best receivers in the league. Maybe better than Mike Evans.
Possibly, right.
And not really much else.
Right.
Like I don't know about their offensive line too much, but I know their defense have really sort of crapped the bed. Like Clowney's gone, Watt's hurt again. They're just not what they were when Bum Phillips was there. I mean, let's face it, they got VH3 off waivers and started him.
Right.
They're not.
That speaks to what's going on with them.
Yeah. Yes. What's going on with their secondary.
Right. And they're 8-4 on the year. They've currently lost the last 2 though. So
no, they won. They just beat the Patriots.
Did they just beat the Patriots?
I think so.
I don't know. I'm looking at Google right now, which is telling me where they are. So, Now the other thing though, the other half of what Paul says,
and then Atlanta.
There you go. The other half, and then we finish up with Atlanta, which hopefully we can do the same thing to them that we did earlier. The other half is are we seeing real improvements? And I do think we're seeing real improvements. I think the secondary is really improving. I think Vita Vea has really improved this year. I think Ronald Jones has really improved this year. I think Chris Godwin has really improved this year, by a lot. The question to me is Jameis Winston really improving? And this is going to continue to be my question throughout the course of the year.
What do you think?
Do what?
What do you think?
Oh, well, I'll say it. I'll say it again. You think he has? You think he is, quote unquote, because Scott Reynolds wrote this in his 2-point conversion this week at pewterreport.com, where he said, the question is has Jameis turned the corner? And what I think is happening is Jameis does this pendulum swing thing where he has a set of games where he's really, really, really good Jameis. And then he has a set of games where he's really bad Jameis. And then it swings and he's really good Jameis for all. And this is what we've seen over 4 years.
You just asked Rick Stroud this question.
I did. And they kind of said the same sort of thing. Like, who is it? But I think what we're going to see is over the remainder of the season is a period of games where we're getting good Jameis. So we're going to go off into these contract negotiations with good Jameis. And what I'm not going to know is this really Jameis has turned a corner and, yes, this is the guy we want to go with, or is it just part of the pendulum swing?
Yeah. Are we going to have to start all over next year?
Exactly. Are we still dealing with all this stuff? Right. Exactly.
All right. Now he's got to relearn. Remember last year? Remember those last 7 games last year? Remember those?
Exactly.
Kind of like we did in 17, when the defense won all those games for us in the 5-game win streak, but he didn't turn the ball over.
Right.
Or last year when we weren't winning games, but he wasn't turning the ball over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. So I don't know. And to me, that is going to be the question mark for the rest of the year, because I think we're going to see good Jameis for the rest of the season. I really do. There may be an interception here and there, but he's not going to stack them like he has.
So do you think that can Jameis do anything? Can he play? Is there any amount of good play that Jameis can do in these last 4 games that will change your mind going into the 2020 season?
I don't know that there's any amount of play that he can do for the next 4 games that will completely erase that question mark.
All right.
I just don't.
That's fair. It is.
Yeah.
I mean,
it'll be a question mark. I'm not saying that it means that they shouldn't re-sign Jameis or that they shouldn't franchise tag him. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, you just don't trust him.
It's I'm going to need to see what happens next year. You remember when we saw way back at the beginning of the season, we lost a game, we won a game, we lost a game, and then we won a game, and the question was like, oh, well, how do you respond after a loss, right? And you got to come back out and win. And everybody's like, yeah, they responded well. And what I said after that win was, actually, I don't need to see them win the next game. I need them to see them win the game after the next game.
Yeah, I need to see them win too.
Yeah, like that's where I'm with Jameis. Like, I don't need to see this streak of good games right now.
They're eventually always going to win a game after a loss.
Exactly. Right.
Eventually.
Right. I need to see them continue that. Like what we're experiencing right now as we record this, Ren.
Right.
The Buccaneers have stacked 2. Great. Now I need to see them do 3.
3, and then 27, and then 40.
Right. Go 40 in a row. 16 games. That's 3 years of undefeated seasons. I love it.
Then I might possibly think about re-signing you. That's all I'm saying.
Giving him a long-term contract at that point.
No, but it's all still the same thing, kind of like the thing you came up with a while ago. It's like it doesn't matter which side of we use the word pendulum again. You fall in with Jameis, both you're right.
Yeah.
You want to get rid of Jameis, you've got very valid reasons. You want to keep Jameis, you have very valid reasons. There's no right or wrong with the guy.
Right.
Which, makes it so goddamn frustrating for everybody.
And God bless whatever football schedulers put Mark Schlereth on the call for the Buccaneers for the last 2 weeks, because he's the only national commentator that I feel that understands that.
Oh, yeah.
He really is. Like, he's the only one who understands that. So
I thought you didn't like him.
No, I like him. When he first came out, I was like, who's this bozo? Who's this clown? I don't know who this guy is. And then, I listened to the first game and I went, this guy gets me, man. He gets me. He knows. The man knows. And then I watched him this past week because, I couldn't be at the game even though they were 20 minutes down the road from me. I was like, he knows. I'm not. If you'd like the full details on why Brent was not at the game when they were just in the same town that he lives in, go back to the Instant Cast. The story's there.
Or just shame him on Twitter because of his poor fandom.
Yeah. Oh, you're not really a fan. If you're a real fan, you showed up for the game. Anyway.
A new one. That was good.
You know what? I would like to, I'd like to stay married. Let's put it that way. I enjoy where I am. So anyway, all right, Ren. That's actually our email. We had one more email, but it came into us as a voice recording, and I can't get it to pull up, and I can't get it to play. And
that's
I see
Chris,
that it's really
right?
long. Yeah.
He contacted me, and he said, he's like, I just can't do an email. Can you guys play the voicemail? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. So, Chris, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I just can't. Normally, I could, and I don't know what's happening right now. But I'll see if I can't do something, and maybe we'll see if we can't clip something out and do something with it later at a different point. I'm just not prepared to be able to do that right now. So with that, Ren,
that's going to be a no, Chris.
Yeah. So, but we did receive it. I'm
going to try real hard.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. But with that, Ren, why don't you tell the folks where they can find you on the internet if they have any questions they would like to ask you?
Sure. The best place you can find me is on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXE. I had a pretty active day on Twitter today.
You did.
I was all over the place.
Yeah.
Cracking jokes and taking names. So that's the place to find me. If you want to talk Bucs football, because I'm always down to do that.
There you go. And if you guys, there you go. If you guys want to get in touch with me, you can find me
day or night
at Brent Allen Live
24/7
on Twitter and on Facebook and all the social medias except for Snapchat because I don't do that. I'm too old for that. And the show is at the Pewtercast on Twitter and Facebook, and you can email us as Paul did and Chris, although I just can't play his voicemail right now, to thepewtercast@gmail.com. We will get to that on a future episode of the show. Coming out later this week, Ren, we have our Buck in the News show. That's the show where we're going to wrap up everything that happened this week ever at One Buck Place as we look towards this Colts game, which I will be at. Thank you very much. much. 3.5 hour drive, but I will still be there. So we'll do that, and then we'll be back with our instant cast. More final thoughts next week, and who knows? Maybe by then, Shaq Barrett will have signed that new contract, and
only if he realizes that.
Only if he understands. Yes.
He's taking his life and his future, like millions, in his hands every time he's walking out there.
It's true.
He could get hit by a bus, Brent.
You know, we've already covered this at length, so
I don't remember.
We'll close the show out as always.
Was it formed in a question? Because I tend to space out when it's not formed in a question.
Bucs.